Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We dove into this conversation, so I'm doing a little bit of an intro. We wanted to invite Luke back and continue our conversation around attachment and how important it is for the addict as well to do his own individual work around attachment wounds and how the conversation led today of like why it's so important to do for their children as well. It is a very organic conversation, as a lot of these are with Luke, Alana, and myself. It's why we all get along so well. We hope that you enjoy the continued conversation around attachment, and especially those of you who are struggling with addiction. We really hope that this episode encourages you to continue to do your work or start doing your work if you haven't already. The conversation starts with me asking, what direction do we really want to go today? And it just organically unfolded. Here you go. So, are you thinking more along the lines of, and Alana too, are you thinking more along the lines of why is it important for you to do your own healing as the addict for your children?
Yeah, and probably just as much of the healing that exists in me doing my own work happens while I'm showing up for my kids in full awareness, looking at the destruction and having a front seat to my kids and wanting to show up for them creates an opportunity for my own healing, not just theirs. And that's pretty beautiful to sit with them and feel like I'm not enough. There is no way that I can heal all this destruction. And being present for that experience, that's healing for me to stay present for them. And that's what I watch a lot of men do is just being very overwhelmed with all the destruction and they can't really get their feet moving because of all the destruction and going, hey, how do I heal this stuff for my kids? But they get healed at the same time. Stuff with inside of me and stuff inside my kids.
So, that's what I would love to slow down right there. Is what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to do a really quick disclaimer because we hit record and then we're not stopping. We are going full throttle into an already happening conversation. And so if you're just listening and going, hold on, wait, what? We were talking and this was so good that we had to hit record. So we will slow it down and we will make this make more sense. But yes, Luke, what you're saying, will you slow this down? And will you also repeat sharing what you see in that hopelessness in clients? What you had said before we hit record.
Yeah. And I'll just speak to me instead of my clients. Every day, every moment of every day, I get a chance to look at my kids and go, they struggle being attached to the world around them because a lot of it has to do with my choices, my hiding, my secrecy. And because of all that, not really being an attuned parent to meet their needs. So now they're how many years old? 19, 18, 16, 11, and 10. And I can see parts where I'm like, crap, they didn't feel secure in their attachment with me. And now we're having to tackle that. So very overwhelming. So overwhelming that I literally forgot what I'm going to say next.
Well, it sounds like that's what you were also making a point of is when men in general feel that overwhelming sense in that awareness around their impact on kids, then it does what we all saw you do, shuts you down.
Yeah.
You freeze, and then it's like, then what?
It's kind of like you have this big pile of garbage in front of you that you have to move, and garbage is in just messiness and destruction and chaos. And where do I start? There's nothing I can do to really impact everything all at once. I can just pick up one piece of trash at a time and start to clean up the area. And being motivated for that and feeling like I can actually make a dent in it in those moments feels very overwhelming. But what's interesting is when you get to work, it starts feeling pretty invigorating because you're like, wow, some stuff's happening. But then if you just look back up with a big pile, you're like, oh, geez. So being able to not zoom out too often and just staying present for the day, present for the hour, present for the minute is really important. Because I've zoom out and look at the whole thing, it's a very overwhelming experience.
And you keep using the word overwhelm, but the word that you were using earlier over and over was hopeless. And I think overwhelm is true, but I really want to focus for a second on that hopeless because I see this. I see this with my clients who have betrayed, that they feel like the damage that they've done is just great. Too great to my relationship with my partner, too great my relationship with my kids. And I'll see sometimes they'll say, I need to just end this because I have to do this for everybody else. I've caused too much damage. They don't want to actually leave the relationship, but I've caused too much damage. I just have to go away. Or I've seen some where like, I have a couple clients where their parent acted outside of the values and then literally abandoned the family and then went off and started some new family over here and just completely dropped their first family. And I believe a lot of it comes from this place of there's just too much damage and that hopeless. I give up. Throw in the white towel. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. And that's the part. There's this, what does giving up look like? And not moving is giving up too. Just not doing anything is giving up. So I think there's a lot of that, just staying still is really still hurtful to the people around you compared to moving your feet. And me, as my addict brain is like, I'm fully engaged, running 100 miles an hour, or I'm stopped. But it really isn't about that. It's just about consistency. It's about the little things. My son told me a while back ago, he said, Dad, usually when you try to connect with us, what you do is you go, hey, let's do a boys' day, or let's go on a date. Let's go to dinner. And he's like, but what really matters to us is just stopping and sitting down and saying, hey, what's going on? Or when we're playing video games, sitting down next to us and watching us play video games. Just those moments. And I had shame in the moment. It was just like, man, am I ever going to get this right? Am I ever going to get it right? Every time I think I know what I'm supposed to do next, somebody's telling me not. And then days, weeks go by and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you, son, for that information. That's very helpful. So now I'm trying to implement that, going about my life. And then I'm watching myself not do it sometimes. Sometimes doing it, but I feel like I just want to completely show up in this area. So I'm either going to give up because I can't be perfect at it, or I'm going to be all in. And every day I'm going to have a sit down next to my son, all 5 kids. So I think that throwing in the white towel can be giving up, leaving your family because it's just too much, but also can be just not doing anything at all. And I've done that a lot, that part.
Part of me wants
It's
to ask you the question from the betrayed part. I feel like women are going, but why? They're hearing you say, well, I'm being told by my son what he needs, and I want to show up that way, but sometimes I don't. And I found myself even going, well, why not?
Yeah. Why don't I, when he gives me the answer, why don't I just follow through and do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Telling you
Yeah.
this is what you can do. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's something you can answer, but I'm thinking that's something that my brain initially wanted to ask. And I wonder how many other women are going, but why not?
It's a shame thing, Amy. It's, if I try, I'm gonna get it wrong,
Ah,
right? I'm gonna be so imperfect. If I try, that when I do, and it's so worried about getting it perfect and right, that, in fact, there's this book called Now Discover Your Strengths, and it focuses on what are your greatest strengths and what should you really improve on. And one of mine is I'm competitive, extremely competitive, but it's in a weird kind of way. I won't play a game with you if I don't think I can win. I'm not going to challenge
by
you
the
on
way,
everything
he is
out there.
not like games with.
No, fun. Like, I love how you're like, let's interject this part. That's awesome.
and I'm
Um,
like, Luke, game on.
game, let's do it. So it's one of those things where my brain is not helpful when it comes to intimacy this way. Because the only way I want to play is if I can win. And the only way I win is perfection. And I can clearly see in my life, I am not perfect. So does anything short of perfection, and this is sounds stupid, okay? Anything short of perfection seems pointless.
Mm.
And that really stems from shame. Like, see, I'm not enough. Whatever you do won't be enough. So then you combat it. And how many times has Alana and I had a conversation of, it's okay, you're not going to be perfect.
Can I throw on top of that? And that piece I think is huge, but also For those out there who do have an addiction, an addict brain is constantly chasing that dopamine. And the thought of slowing down and just sitting with your child, your brain does not register that as a huge dopamine rush. And so there is this often of like the child wants to just sit and have you listen to them talk about Pokemon or sit and watch them play a video game or enter their world. And your brain does not register that as fun or exciting. And so, depending on where all of your dopamine receptors are, that plays into it big time. And also, addiction is inherently selfish. And it does very much like the world revolves around the me. What do I need? What do I want? What's going to make me happy? What's going to add to my life? And when we're talking about attachment with kids, and it really is about you in the role of that caregiver, you enter their world. And so you really have to use a different type of your brain to be able to do that. So this is where addictions really does hinder that as well. You take that, the dopamine, the selfishness, addiction, and then tackle that on top of shame. And yeah, it can be super paralyzing. And it's not an excuse, right? Big difference between excuse and explanation. But that's why those who are trained to do their work have so much work to do because there's a lot of hurdles to move through to be able to do this consistently and effectively.
I want to build on that. Oh my gosh, Alana, that's so big. And I want to tie into the dopamine. Often I do get a dopamine hit from connection, but with that, I'm always measuring outcomes. So I'm looking to measure an outcome with relationships that doesn't often benefit me immediately. So
Mm.
there are times when I see connection and I can pretty much nail it when it's going to happen. Like Alana and I, you know what? If I show up with her and we go for a long walk, I'm talking about a long walk and just go connect in the morning and talk, and there's going to be some dopamine there and oxytocin connection, and it's going to be awesome. With my kids, it doesn't work the same way. There is definitely a reward, but it is way farther out for me. Okay. For me. And so it feels different with my kids compared to my spouse.
When Alana was talking, the word engaged kept coming up for me. Being able to engage and get into your kid's story, into their world, and how that is part of that. I think we did this episode. Didn't we do ARE?
Uh-huh.
Are you there for me? Yeah. So that E is that engagement part. And it makes sense when we're not getting something, like Luke is saying, we're not getting something immediately, that immediate reward from taking that time to be engaged. It's easy to just be like, nope, not doing it. Now, this is probably, not, I don't know. I'm just going to share it anyways. This example. So I just went on a trip with my stepchildren, just my stepkids and my husband. And one of the children was reading a book. And I asked, how's the book? Tell me a little bit about it. And he gave me an absolute play by play. Like he probably read the entire 5 chapters and just repeated all 5 chapters. And he is talking. We're going on 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And he is just talking and talking. And I want to crawl out of the car, like throw me out of the car, please, because I cannot hear you tell me about this book any longer. It just kept going and going, going. And I'm sitting there going, how can I be engaged in this? Oh my gosh, enough. And I just want to say, stop it. Now, it's interesting that I noticed this and I started to feel shame because I want to throw myself out of the car. But I did give myself some grace because I'm like, okay, this is a stepchild. There's actually a different attachment here between me and this one. Because if it was my own, and I had this thought, I was like, if it was Jackson telling me, I would be so engaged. I would be like, that is so interesting. Even if I'm just laughing to myself about how he's going on and on and on, I would still be in it. Where this particular child, where there's a different attachment, I wanted to be out of it. And I noticed that. And just as you're talking, Luke, I'm thinking that example came up to me and I'm like, I wonder if that's what it's like, where I'm not getting anything in this conversation from this kid talking for 10 minutes. So I want out.
Hmm. That's
And
really interesting.
And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, that's how I'm relating, trying to relate to what you're saying is I was very limited in my engagement because I wasn't getting something from it. And I do notice that a lot And my clients and what they're sharing is, and I don't know if that has a little bit to do with the narcissism, that entitlement. Like, if I'm not getting something from this, then it's not useful.
Okay, that's the goal because I've watched Alana connect with our children. This is really, 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 really painful. I watched Alana connect with our children, and she does it in such a natural. And don't get me wrong, there's times that she gets driven crazy by them, but there's so much just love and compassion and concern. And there is often times that I feel like what you're talking about, more robot, like I do it because I have to. And I just think I don't know, Amy, how much of this comes from, well, actually, I do. The way my brain is wired from family of origin through learning how to attach people, it's that completely selfish mindset. What's in it for me rather than bonding to people around me in a different way, kind of like you have done with your kids out of sacrifice, out of just tons of sacrifice. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that, but it's looked different for Alana than it has me in her ability to be able to connect with our kids.
It takes me back to this idea of how do we repair? How do we repair when this damage is done and the damage is so great? And I think of the analogy, Luke and I were talking about this morning, that we want the second that we try to repair or that we try to do something, we want to see some kind of outcome or some kind of result. But we have such a deep injury here, it's not going to show up right away. And so I think of it kind of like if you have a tree that's planted and it's grown, and I'll use kids as the tree. If you, your entire life, have been feeding and nurturing that tree and giving it sunlight and all the things that it needs to grow and thrive, it's going to grow up into this big, beautiful tree. But let's say that this tree, we occasionally watered it, we occasionally gave it light, or we never did. And that tree is incredibly stunted. It's a much littler tree. Well, the second that you start giving it what it needs, that tree is going to start responding to that, but it's a tree. Are you going to all of a sudden see that tree go from a 2-foot tree to a 10-foot tree? Of course not. That's going to take years of continuing to give it what it needs to grow. And so I see where clients go, but for 2 months, I've been doing everything, whether it's partner or kids. I've been consistent. I've been doing this. Why is it not repaired? And it's because what we're talking about is just like a plant or a tree. It is a slow process of building it, and it's a slow process of it dying. Meaning, if you all of a sudden do give up or you stop having action, you might not see the results of that right away. Often you don't see the results of that, but that slowly withering away and dying. So, this attachment is living and breathing and it's increasing or decreasing from day to day. And it's about what are we doing now to build those relationships, to heal the attachments, to keep adding those good nutrients in regularly. That's what it really comes down to.
And it really isn't about perfect, like you were talking about, Luke, and I can relate to that. I mean, you both know all the work that I'm trying to do with my kids and the repair and not getting it right and having to go back and say, can I have a do over and do it again? And I just want to attest, yes, what you're saying, Alana, it takes so many years to rebuild that. And every time you repair, I feel like you're taking 2 steps forward versus just 1 step. I feel like there's so much more power in that repair work rather than 1 step back, 1 step forward. I feel like you're going to take 1 step, 2 steps back, but you'll double the forward movements when you actually do the that. And we've said this in prior episodes, Alana, that secure attachment is repair. That is being secure. Secure isn't perfect. Secure isn't right. Secure is getting it wrong and correcting it as quickly as you can and over and over and over. I know for myself, but so many women that I work with and even men, we're all trying so hard to just get it perfect and do it right. And Luke, I just really want to validate what you're saying and acknowledge your vulnerability and what you're sharing there. and you're not alone. I feel it, and I know so many other people feel that pressure to get it right, especially when they're the ones that effed it up. I got to get this right. I got to get this perfect. But there really is power in that repair work. So I don't know quite how to ask this, but what I'm trying to get some understanding around is how you balance your own work and your attachment wounds, and then the work with your children and those attachment wounds. Like, how do you know which one comes first? I don't know, again, how I'm just really asking this question, but I feel like there's got to be some confusion and balance here. And how do you balance that?
Yeah. Alana, do you want to comment?
Well, yeah, I want to comment that that's a freaking great question
It is a
because
great question.
no, but it's so legit because we all are born of somebody or somebody's, right? And so we have our own attachment stuff, and most adults haven't done their attachment work. So we have our own wounds that play significantly into some of the choices, many of the choices in the way we live our life today. And then we actively are that for somebody else, and we want to heal those relationships. And so it can be really confusing of what order or when to do each of them. I get clients who do this all the time who say, okay, give me the steps. I do this, check. I do this. Now I do this. Now I do this. Okay, what's next? And healing is so nuanced and messy and multi layered that you have to do both at the same time. But knowing which one at any given moment or when, I think Luke, hearing for you, how you navigate that would be really good to get inside your head here. So good
Yeah.
questioning.
I'm just thinking about my oldest right now. He's 19, and nobody wants to be the oldest child, by the way. I mean, goodness, there has to be an oldest, but the amount he has to, and I think about what I'm learning about myself just being a part of his world, and I find myself constantly having to get back to my therapist and saying, "Oh my gosh, can we talk about this part? Please, hold on." And I will literally disengage from the relationship in one part and say, "Hey, Alana," and oh my goodness, kudos, love to all the single parents out there that have to be even if you're in a marriage, you're being single because 'cause you're carrying it all yourself. Because I have to go to Alana and I go, "Hey, can you hold this part for a second? Because I can't engage with him in this area because 'cause I'll only cause destruction because I don't have my stuff together." One of them was money with him. Some stuff was coming up with me around money, and I was getting in a relationship, and I was causing harm, and I'm like, "I have to bow out, and I have to go connect with my therapist, and then I can come bow back in," but I had to put a boundary for myself in place. Go ahead.
Specify when you say bow out, you mean bow out of talking and doing money with him, not bow out as in now I'm abandoning my child. I just want to
Yeah. Thanks.
highlight.
I love how you can see that stuff. But yeah, not bowing out from the relationship, bowing out from the context and the conversations around money and trying to raise him in that way or help him. I think that's this space of when I show up and try to be that secure place and I recognize I'm not, my own stuff's coming up and I can't be present for them, then I have to back up in that area, get some work done before I can re-engage.
This right here, what you just said, I think is the highlight of the whole entire conversation, Luke.
That's gold.
Okay.
And what I'm hoping women can see and men see is that because you are doing your work, because you are looking into yourself here, you can see when you are showing up in an unsafe way. That introspection right there does not happen unless you do the work. I heard you went to your therapist. So Luke has someone that he goes to help him figure this out. And you were able to take a step back and recognize I am not showing up in a healthy way. So I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to ask my partner and request, hey, can you step in for me here? And then I'm going to figure this out. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to try that again. And there's the repair. Everything you just said, I just really want to highlight and slow down. This is what we're talking about. To answer the question, what do you do first? How do you balance that? You just gave a beautiful answer, and it's messy and it's not perfect, but that's how you do it.
Okay, and so can we hold on to that outline that you just outlined, went back over that, said, "Okay, boom, 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 boom." Now I want to take you and hold on to that. Now take you for a second for those people who are in the middle of it. I'm telling you, it feels messy inside my head. And the amount of conversations that Alana and I had to come over, or the tears that I had to get to those places of going like, wait, hold on. This is my stuff. It's not his stuff. It's so hard. And with the outline that you gave, Amie, I just want to let you know, because I'm in the middle of it, how I don't feel like I'm getting it right. Even though Amie can say, hey, let's point out some things here. I think the reason I'm saying this is just some encouragement. If you feel like it's messy, if you feel like it's clunky, you don't know if you're getting it right, it's it's okay. Don't stop. Don't give
Well,
up.
this isn't a process that's a couple of days. This isn't, hey, this happened on Thursday. Tuesday, I went to my therapist. Friday, I re engaged with him. This is like a 6 month or longer or shorter process of really sorting through it, going back and forth, working through the layers. So I want to just really give some perspective here because sometimes you listen to a podcast and it's like, okay, cool. Let me go do the thing so I can just fix this. And it's a lot more thorough than
I have I want to highlight, and this is what we started the last one with. I have one job as a parent, one job, and it's to reflect and mirror back confidence, and my child can feel security. It's a mirror back my own identity so they can see it, so they can have comfort in the fact that they can find themselves in that journey. So anything that keeps me from being that mirror of them being able to look back at themselves, the gate's in the way. I got to do my own work. I have to be able to be present for them. Not going to be perfect at it. I like it when it's broken down, simplified like that.
That's powerful. And I appreciate what you said, Alana. This isn't quick. And that's why it's so important for, I'm just going to speak to moms, to get out of the way of those repairs between child and your partner in the marriage or out of the marriage. I know I talk a lot about this with my divorce ladies. You've got to get out of the way. I know you want to run in, you want to rescue, you want to fix the damage that's been done, but it is not yours to fix. And whether in or out of the relationship, you've got to get out of the way so that an opportunity can be there to repair. And it's hard when you don't see it happening, but just like you said, this isn't quick and it's going to take time, sometimes years. I remember my therapist telling me that it might take years and I wanted to punch him. No, this is not how it's supposed to work. But as I can look back and over a decade now, yeah, it has taken years and it's okay. But you got to get out of the way to allow that to happen, especially if you do see your partner attempting to do the work. Let that be their work between him and those kids.
if I can give an example of how I did it wrong and then what I am working hard to do. But Luke would come to me and he would be frustrated with an experience with one of the children. And I would go straight into fix it mode. Okay, well, you just need to do this and do this. And if you talk to them in this way and go do this activity with them and fix, 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 fix. But what I did in those moments is I did not give Luke time or space to sort through it on his own, which gave him no room to look internally, no room to figure things out for himself, no room for him to authentically engage because now he's just showing up with whatever somebody else told him to do. And so, in all my attempts to be helpful, I was actually blocking him from doing his own work. And so now, today, I try to notice my fixer parts, validate those within myself, and then stay out of it, leave him room to figure it out. And if we are talking about it, it's more of, so what do you think you're going to do there?
You know,
Wow, that
that's
like it's like bringing something up for you. Yeah.
when I do a family of origin history, I never ask a question like, how did your parents show up for you? I always ask, how did mom show up for you? We go to have this long, long, long conversation. We go, how did dad show up for you? So separate yourselves from this because your relationship is with one and then it's with the other.
Mm,
So stop owning it for the other person that will only get in the way.
I love that connection. You're so right.
My relationship with my dad, I have a relationship with my mom that they're different.
Which is why I like that. We need to put this in the show notes again. that attachment um, assessment that you came across, Luke, and we've been sharing with everybody because it divides it up in those 4 parts, seeing the different ways you attach to mom versus dad. That is so insightful. I actually just sent it to one of my children, and finally they're wanting to take it and look at it. And he was like, "Ah, explains so much." And I'm like, yes, it does. So- and I was good. I didn't ask, well, what was your score with me?
I guarantee you wanted to know.
Oh, and hell
I
yes,
would
I
wanna
wanted
know.
to know. I was so wanted to know. I was like, who's better, me or dad? But I didn't. I resisted and I just said, yes, it is very interesting. But that one is just really helpful. And if you do have adult kids that can maybe lean into that or want to lean into that, then it's a great assessment to take. We could go on and on. I love having you here, Luke, and having these conversations. And I'll let Alana wrap it up. But I do just want to acknowledge your vulnerability here around this topic. And thank you for always being so willing to share your
Yeah.
experience with others. I know it's so helpful.
Thank you for letting me come. Thank you for giving me a space.
There's something that is really powerful about an individual who's in the middle of their own work and they share what that looks like with vulnerability because it's hard to find. So, Luke, thank you for joining us. Something with attachment with kids. If I could give my kids any piece of information before they ever had kids, I would say learn everything you can about attachment because it not only will heal you, but it will be the greatest gift that you can give your children. And for those of you who are here and you've been listening to all these episodes, you are giving not only yourself a gift, your partner a gift, but also any children, if you have them, or future generations. This work is so much bigger than just you. So, thank you, as always, for hanging out with us this week. And we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Alana is right. This work is so much bigger than just for you. And sometimes this work feels like it's just too big to even tackle. But we've got you. Wherever you are at in your journey, we hope to meet you there. Be sure to check out the show notes for the many different programs that we offer and that we have available, like my new Intimacy Within Self-Paced course. It's going to walk you through the 7 levels of intimacy and help you cultivate that for yourself first. Or for those of you who are ready to lean into that hard, join me in my coaching membership where you will have so many opportunities to get coaching and support and really become aware of you and believing in yourself again. Maybe you feel like it's time to explore divorce, but you have no idea where to start or what that looks like. My self-paced guide, Divorce 101, will slow things down for you and show you that next right step for you just right now. No matter where you are at in the journey, continue to choose healing, to choose recovery, and to choose you. Take care, everybody.